Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Banyatela. It's great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, will the ad hoc committee established to investigate allegations made by KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi be compromised by the fact that the chair of that committee is from the ANC, the same party, some of whose members are directly implicated in the allegations? Well, opposition parties have raised this as a concern after the election of ANC MP Soviet Lekganyane as chair of the committee. They argue that the credibility of this committee is at stake. Soviet Lekganyane speaks to us tonight. Also on the show, what opportunities exist for South African exporters to take advantage of the Continental Free Trade Area, given the 30% US tariffs that we are now facing? President Cyril Ramaphosa says that South Africa will strengthen its trade missions in Africa and take this opportunity to push forward with the implementation and expansion of the African Continental Free Trade Area. So, how can we capitalize on this free trade area? The Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Mene, speaks to us tonight. And then later, is ActionSA considering joining the Government of National Unity? Reports suggest that the ANC-NEC has resolved to invite the party to join the GNU. But the invitation has been made before, and ActionSA said no. So what makes this invitation different? Is there new appetite on the part of ActionSA? Well, we'll hear from ActionSA leader Herman Mashaba. But first, my comment. Now, ANC MP Soviet Lekganyane has been elected as Parliament's ad hoc committee chairperson responsible for investigating KZN Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations of police corruption. There are now questions over how the committee can be led by an ANC MP when many of the party's members are actually implicated. Here's ActionSA Member of Parliament Darlene James saying that the committee should have been led by an opposition MP. This is what she said earlier today.
But how do we garner public trust here this morning when we have a chairperson that has been elected from the very party where most of these people are embroiled in? How does that make the public feel to know that today we have a member from the same family where all of these people come from?
Well, the EFF supported her call, arguing that the committee shouldn't be led by a parliamentarian from any of the GNU parties.
There's a difference between not being happy with the ANC occupying the position of a chairperson with a person occupying the position of a chairperson. So an impression must never be created that we have a problem with you. We have a problem with the ANC occupying that position.
The MK party also agreed with ActionSA. In fact, they nominated the EFF leader, Julius Malema, to chair the committee, a nomination that Malema declined.
The biggest concern when when you go back, you look at all the ad hoc committees in Parliament, you look at the Judicial Commission of Inquiries, the last line of defense is in Parliament. You know what happened with the former Chief Justice Chris Ngobo. The matter was taken to Parliament. What happened? It was a wasteful expenditure because comrade closed ranks. So I hope this time, whatever happens, when this matter comes to Parliament, justice will be sent to be done.
Well, ANC MPs were quick to defend Lekganyane's election.
Let's accept that the representative of the ActionSA is perfectly at liberty to express her own views and her own discomfort about what her own organization and some South African perceived with regard to the process we're engaged on. But I think we need to say that both ActionSA and those South Africans who may be aligned to the concern she has, I think they should find comfort in the fact that the committee has elected the chair who is not in any way fingered out on the matters that were required to investigate. In this committee, we represent different political parties. And I think our bona fide, in terms of how we're going to discharge our responsibilities in this work, must be measured and be assessed on the basis of our contributions, not on the basis of the political parties where we come from.
I mean, of course, the argument the ANC will use is that it already chairs committees in Parliament where ANC MPs account to, but opposition parties could also argue that there have been instances where ANC ministers are shielded from accountability by some of their comrades who chair those committees. So the question we're asking you tonight is, do you agree with ActionSA and other opposition parties like the EFF and the MK party that the chair of this ad hoc committee investigating Mkonazi's allegations should not come from the ANC, given that members of the organization are implicated in Mkonazi's allegations? Are you concerned about that? Right? And how do you think having an ANC MP chairing this ad hoc committee will affect the committee's work? You can send us a WhatsApp voice note right now on 078-459-1897. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from, and please keep it at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. All right, let's go straight to our conversation with ANC Member of Parliament Soviet Lekganyane, who has been elected as the chairperson of the ad hoc committee established to investigate these allegations regarding national safety threats. Mr. Lekganyane, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement, to you and your viewers.
So there are questions that are being asked about whether or not you are the right person to lead such a committee, given that you're a member of a party, some of whose members are directly implicated in the allegations. Are you, as an ANC MP, the right person for the job?
All of us in that committee are the right appointments by Parliament, and it is not our responsibility to cast aspersions or impugn each other's qualities and personalities. What must unite us is, what is it that we can do for the people of South Africa? What are the weaknesses that we have in each of us as members of the committee? And how can we improve on those weaknesses? Personally, as the chairperson of the committee, I do not take offense if you listen to what Honorable Ntuli, the Chief Whip of the ANC, has said. We see that as a challenge, and not only to the chairperson and members of the ANC, but to the whole members of the committee, to say, from us, South Africans expect us to exhibit high moral rectitude and unimpeachable integrity. And for sure, those must be the buzzwords that run through the whole proceedings.
Mm-hmm. One of the arguments that were made was that having an ANC MP won't instill confidence. So they believe it tinkles with the credibility of the committee. And some would take it a step further and argue that we've seen instances where some ANC MPs chairing committees appear to shield their comrades who are ministers from accountability. What assurance do you make to the people of South Africa that you will not only be fair, but not be influenced by your allegiance to the organization?
And your statement is incomplete, because in other instances, you have seen ANC MPs and chairpersons of portfolio committees who have been very robust, who have been bone crunching in terms of how they do the oversight work. Look,
because that's the expectation,
let's
right?
take,
I'm just mentioning the other one because
yeah,
it's odd.
and-
This one, it's
and-
actually what we
yeah.
expect of members of parliament to do.
That's exactly what I'm saying here, that the ANC, the allegations that have been made by the provincial commissioner are not against the ANC. For now, the allegations have been made against one member of the ANC who has been appointed as a minister, and South Africans who are working in the organs of state, to which political parties we do not know where they belong. And I will urge that let us not move the cart before the horse, because we are going to invite Gerald Mkhwanasi before the committee, and we do not know, as he will be expatiating on the allegations or claims that he has made, what more will come out of that. I think the attitude that we must have is that we are South Africans who are faced with this mammoth challenge of having to redeem the respective organs of state and show that we can restore the abilities of those institutions that have been affected. Who are the people that are affected by these acts of omission or commission by the organs of state and the respective individuals alleged? These are unsung South Africans, ordinary women, children who might have lost their parents. And the narrative that we must drive, you and I, is what justice must be done to those people who do not have a voice, who for a very long time expected to hear somebody speaking on their behalf. And this is the very same message that we permeated through the committee meeting today, to say all of us, as honorable members, we are not sworn into parliament on the law of our respective political parties, but we've been sworn through the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and that is the law that must guide our work.
Yeah, but Mr. Lekganyane, you and I know that that's not how things work, right? As the ANC, there is an agenda that you push in parliament. So is the EFF, so is the DA. In fact, we don't have a system that allows you as a member of parliament to do as you please and claim, oh, I'm going to actually remember my oath of office, which is to the Constitution and not to the organization that has deployed me. But that's going to put you in trouble. In fact, the ANC could take action against you. We've seen this in many instances, and it's not just an ANC issue. It's an issue with all the political parties in parliament. They expect that you are there on their ticket and you will do as per the position of the party. I do want to ask you about the scope of your work as the committee. What scope of work would you want to have? Do you exist merely to hear the allegations? Do you have capacity to corroborate the statements made? Will you be able to call witnesses? I know that the parties still have to comment on the terms of reference, but what do you think, as the chairperson, would help this committee get to the bottom of the allegations that have been made?
The last point that you made before asking the question cannot be left like that. You know, we are coming from the African National Congress. Our organization has produced leaders who have risen to become icons and role models in the Republic of South Africa. But listen here, if you say that we come to a committee with a mandate from the African National Congress, are you insinuating that our mandate is to come and change the presentations that will be made by witnesses who will be coming before the committee? I mean, if a member of the committee, a witness comes and say, in full view of, remember our proceedings are not closed proceedings; they will be open to the public. So I can imagine, Clement, when somebody comes and say X was involved in the following acts of omission. How does one from the African National Congress stands up and say what he said in this presentation about X? It's not possible. South Africans are watching, they hear what is being said, unless the intention here is to write off the African National Congress and say, just go and sit in that committee, but you must know we don't have any trust in you. In fact, even if you just sit there and keep quiet, it will be okay. I don't think that would be fair and justifiable.
No, I agree.
Give
I
us
agree.
a chance
I agree.
Yes.
I suppose what I was responding to there is you mentioned the Constitution. You mentioned that as ANC MPs or any other member of parliament, your allegiance is to the Constitution.
Yeah.
And I was trying to remind you that we've had instances.
We are members of Parliament of the Republic, not Parliament of the ANC.
Yeah, but you are there on the ticket of the
Constitution
ANC. Then why did the Secretary General of the ANC in the past threaten to take action against people like Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma?
That I make reference to is that of the Republic.
So what I'm asking is, why would then the SG of organization in the past threaten to take action against ANC MPs who decided to act according to their allegiance to the Constitution and what they think is right, but what they did was actually in contradiction to the party's position? Remember what happened with Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma in the past when you've been voting in the National Assembly? If really you're not there on the ANC ticket and you're not forced to follow the ANC's rule book, why then would the ANC be unhappy with members of parliament who vote in contradiction to the party the position has taken?
What I know from the ANC, which I'm proudly a member, is that we pride ourselves of instructing our members not to take illegal decisions. Any person who takes an illegal decision in their area of work must know that the law of this country does not allow them.
What is an illegal decision?
Mr.
Lekganyane, what is an illegal decision? So if the ANC says we are voting in a motion of no confidence, and as an ANC MP of the ANC, I think that is not the good decision because this is not good for South Africa. That is me acting on my conscience and understanding my constitutional obligation. Why would that be illegal?
That is exactly what I'm saying to you, that the ANC will never instruct its members to take illegal decisions or decisions that are unconstitutional. So if you have South Africans or members of the ANC who are delinquent, we must never use that to batter the African National Congress. This organization is founded on very solid values and principles. And since I served in the leadership structures of the ANC, I can't make any reference to any decision where we ever decided that a person must go and act in a manner delinquent or unconstitutional.
But as a caucus, you do expect members of parliament. So as a caucus, you've got caucus meetings, you agree on a position you'll take, and you expect all ANC MPs to abide by that, right?
ANC MPs of the Republic, any MP in the Republic of South Africa who sits in parliament and vote for a decision which is unconstitutional, that person does not deserve to sit in that parliament.
Okay, but you're not answering my question. You, as the ANC MP, you are part of caucus meetings. Caucus meetings take positions to guide ANC MPs on how they're going to behave.
Which are not unconstitutional.
Yes, but here's my point.
Which are not unconstitutional.
So, but just answer me this. You are part of caucus meetings. You get told by your chief whip, Mtumiseni Ntuli, that guys, this is how we are going to vote, and this is how we are going to do things in parliament, and you have to abide by that. Do you agree with that?
The chief whip of the ANC, when he comes to the caucus, he knows that he's not speaking to robots. He is speaking to human beings who are rational, who will not accept anything unconstitutional or illegal.
Yeah, but Mr.
That is our attitude.
Okay, let's move on. I've asked about the scope of work. What do you think as the chairperson would help you with getting to the bottom of the allegations?
Look, what we have decided today is that we have agreed on the terms of reference, which is very fundamental because we can't be running helter-skelter. We must know what we are going to do as a committee. And the program as well, when are we going to start with our our hearings, but very importantly, because we are a constitutional democracy, there are legalities that must be sorted out. For instance, the rights of the citizens of the Republic who may be appearing before the committee. How do we ensure that we protect their rights as the citizen in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic? Yes.
Are there any
and also the conduct of us. The question which you have been asking about the presence of members of the ANC, we must agree on an ethical standard. How do we conduct ourselves as members of the committee? If we do things that are not in keeping with the aspirations of South Africans, obviously there must be an ethical framework that provides on how such misconduct should be dealt with.
All right. Are there any concerns with the duplication of responsibilities? I mean, as Parliament, you do reserve the right to hold the executive accountable, even though there may be an inquiry that the President has established. So how are you going to manage what may be an overlap of the two processes?
Yeah, there is no duplication if you understand this within the trias politica, the separation of powers. Parliament is another arm of state, and the executive also operates within that equality of arms. So Parliament is doing its business. It does not have to be subordinated to any other organ of state. For instance, in the judiciary, if you remember, General Mkhwanazi has made allegations that there are members in the judiciary who could have been involved in some of this unscrupulous activities. If the judiciary decides to say, we are going to investigate this, there must not be anybody who says this is a duplicate or a triplicate. I think, the doctrine of separation of powers enjoys precedence here. And that is the spirit and the attitude within which the work must be done. We are not trying to undermine any work that is being done elsewhere. We respect the independence of each of the arms of the state.
At the end of this process, will you make a recommendation to the National Assembly? And what possible outcomes are we looking at here? So in other words, whatever comes out of this parliamentary process, will there be accountability, and who will be like the implementing agent, so to speak?
Look, we are a committee of the National Assembly. When we conclude our work, the Speaker of the National Assembly is the one who then takes the lead to say, this is your report. I'm now taking it to the National Assembly, or we will want you to come and formally table it in the National Assembly. And in the same way as the National Assembly passed a resolution to appoint an ad hoc committee, the National Assembly will apply itself to the report that would have been tabled and take a decision. And obviously thereafter, there are respective committees of the National Assembly in the form of portfolio committees who will then have to make sure that the respective institutions upon which they play oversight implement the decisions that the National Assembly would have taken. The National Assembly may, within its rules, decide on a mechanism on how such decisions that it would have taken should be implemented. And I think we may leave it to that period where the National Assembly makes decisions on how the adopted resolutions which would have been taken are implemented.
All right. Soviet Lekganyane, thank you so much for speaking to us. He's the chairperson of this ad hoc committee that will have this monumental task of looking at the allegations that the KZN Police Commissioner has made. Now, here's a repeat and a reminder of that question we've been asking you tonight. Do you agree with ActionSA and other opposition parties that the chair of this ad hoc committee investigating these allegations should not come from the ANC, given that members of the organization are implicated? Send us a WhatsApp on 078 459 1897. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced that South Africa will strengthen its trade missions in Africa. This as the United States imposed that 30% tariff on South African imports. Let's speak now to Wamkele Mene, who is the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Mr. Mene, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
So we have a new reality in front of us with these U.S. tariffs. President Cyril Ramaphosa says that our country needs to strengthen its trade missions in Africa and take this opportunity to push forward with the implementation and expansion of the African Continental Free Trade Area. My question is, why haven't we taken full advantage of this African Continental Free Trade Area? We didn't need these tariffs to start exploring this to its fullest.
Well, let me start by saying that if you remember, in 2020, President Ramaphosa was the chair of the African Union, the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of the African Union, and in that capacity, really was the advocate for entry into force of the AFCFTA and for operationalization, rolling out the market, the AFCFTA market. So I think South Africa, under the president's leadership, has been a very, very clear advocate of establishing an alternative market from whether we are talking about European or US markets for diversification of our exports to the rest of the world. Now, the actions of the United States have come at the back of the new administration. We were actually in discussions with, when I say we, I'm not in the government of South Africa, I mean the AFCFTA Secretariat, the African Union. We were in very, very advanced discussions right up until November, before the elections in the United States, with the previous government about an extension of AGOA. And I believe that the extension was going to be granted. That then USTR, my counterpart, Ambassador Catherine Tai, the trade minister of the US, was very supportive. The Biden administration in general was supportive, and some senators and congressmen and women were supportive. All of it changed, of course. The calculus changed in January this year. So I think it is a matter of regret, of course, but the underlying point you make is correct, and that is advancing rapidly to identify alternative markets.
Absolutely. The biggest priority now for our government is to protect export industries, and as part of doing that, they want the acceleration of that diversification of the export markets by deepening this intra-Africa trade. What opportunities do you think exist here for our exporters, especially the automotive and agricultural sectors? How can we capitalize on the Continental Free Trade Area?
The AFCFTA is a market of $3.4 trillion a combined GDP, a population of 1.4 billion people. And South Africa is well positioned to benefit from this market because of the sophistication in terms of manufacturing capabilities, value-added production, whether we're talking about agriculture or indeed manufactured goods. South Africa was exporting about almost $2 billion worth of vehicles to the US, and just over $1.5 billion worth of other value-added products that were being exported to the United States market. Therefore, the capacity to export and take advantage of a vast market, whether it is an advanced market or not, South Africa, I believe, does have that capacity. The fact that over the last 25 years, South Africa has been a leading exporter under AGOA illustrates that point. 2023, South Africa was the second largest exporter, non-crude oil, I should add, the second largest exporter under AGOA. So I think that this is a seminal moment that we should take advantage of as a country to rapidly identify new markets within the AFCFTA, shift our productive structures, our supply chains to the continent of Africa, not neglecting others, of course. But what is clear is that market certainty, predictability, does have an impact on investment and investment pipelines. And the AFCFTA does offer that market certainty and predictability, which regrettably, in respect of the United States, is not there and shall not be there for the foreseeable future. So from a policy perspective, I think the government is correct to rapidly move towards diversified and looking at the continent of Africa as an alternative market. We have also supported this initiative from a policy point of view, and also introducing tools. We negotiated, you mentioned the auto sector, manufacturers of components. We negotiated successfully with Afreximbank a facility of $1 billion to support exporters of components, producers of components. And as we speak, that facility is available, $1 billion available to support intra-Africa trade for trade in manufactured components through the continent to support the auto sector.
So does that address then the cost of course, the export? Because it's, I mean, I imagine it's not as easy as getting the industries to expand into new markets in the rest of Africa, because I would imagine finding new markets is not as easy as that, right? The conversation sometimes we have about new markets implies that we have businesses that have markets that are lined up elsewhere that they can readily pivot towards. But you have to consider costs of access. You have to consider the consumer buying power of those alternative markets.
You are absolutely correct. AGOA was passed in 2000. We started seeing an upward trend in exports, I would say, almost 10 years later. This is the nature of establishing a trade agreement. It's not just negotiating the rules of the agreement. It is also about establishing new markets, new supply chain networks. And we have to do that. We do not have an alternative. But I would say this, in the case of, in many African countries, though the market intelligence, the knowledge of the market, the customer base, all of these are already there. By way of an example, we developed an auto procurement strategy for the entire continent, and we mapped out which countries along the value chain of the auto sector, along the value chain of the agricultural sector, which countries are export ready and which countries require imports to support their domestic industries. So we've done the analysis, we've done the work. And I think that if you combine that analysis with a political and a policy direction to pursue Africa as an alternative market, and the trade finance, which has already been secured through Afreximbank, those three factors enable us to move much, much faster than the 10 years that I pointed to take advantage of the AFCFTA as an alternative market. But we have to move with speed. And we have to be very flexible in how we negotiate with our trade finance institutions so that some of them should, I believe, they should be in a position to provide interim financing facilities so that those industries in Gqeberha that are already affected, that in the short term, they are able to cushion the blow. On employees as well. Wamkele Mene, thank you so much for speaking to us. He's the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area. All right, we've been asking you the question tonight about the decision that's been taken in Parliament today, the election of Soviet Lekganyane, who's an ANC MP, to be the chair of that ad hoc committee that will be investigating allegations made by the KZN Commissioner, SAPS Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Let's listen to some of the voice notes that have come through.
Good evening, Clement. It's Madonna from Lichtenberg. South Africa, it's a mess in South Africa, because with him being the chair, it compromises everything. I mean, how can ANC hire somebody who's ANC to investigate itself? It doesn't make sense for me. So it just compromises everything, man. Thank you.
Evening, Clement. You are speaking to Taviso from Richie, Jacob Style. No, I think it doesn't matter who the chairperson is of the committee. I think those people are much more qualified and capable of doing the job very properly. They must just be objective and stick to the terms of reference. Thank you. Good night.
Sam Aleko Trikopis Clement Dumela. There is nothing wrong with Soviet having been elected as a chair. In any case, he has been democratically elected unopposed after Julius having declined the nomination. The main aim of a chairperson is to chair and give some necessary guidance. Patriotism must reign here, and no one is going to be their brother or sister's keeper. The whole world will be watching. Whether Lekganyane or Malema, truth must be laid bare. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for your inputs. After the break, we sit down with ActionSA leader Herman Mashaba. Stay with us. Welcome back. ActionSA's Herman Mashaba has set out the terms for the ANC should they entertain any ideas of joining the government of national unity. The party says that they want President Cyril Ramaphosa to shrink what they call a bloated cabinet before they can even consider joining in. The ActionSA, you remember, initially turned down any offers to be part of the GNU. So have they changed their mind? Herman Mashaba is the leader of ActionSA, joining us now in studio. Mr. Mashaba, thank you so much for making time for us.
Good evening, Clement, and thank you very much for this great opportunity to discuss something that, as a leader of ActionSA, we've never been officially approached by anyone. And the whole day, one had to deal with, I don't know whether it's speculation coming from you, journalist, or something. We have no idea because no one has ever
approached us. So they're probably still coming. But they did approach you for the first time. And I remember
after the elections, after the issue with VET, they wanted us to get involved. We said, guys, you've got 70% support in Parliament, and we don't want our independence to be neutralized because, honestly, what purpose will ActionSA serve being involved in a 70% Parliament? I think people are sick and tired in this country of one-party dominance. So I think an opposition party like ActionSA, it's really very necessary.
But a lot has changed since then. I mean, you've worked with the ANC in Parliament in support of the budget, for instance. You're working together in Tshwane. There are instances where you've worked together in Johannesburg. Has the appetite changed? And what would make you as ActionSA consider joining the GNU?
Look, I think we made it clear, firstly, obviously, I think from day one, we on record to say, look, you've got 70%, you don't really need us. That was just immediately after the elections. And when we assisted with VET, they wanted us, actually, I remember on that Sunday, they wanted us to, after we gave them the proposal in terms of how we must approach to ensure that South Africans do not have VET, they immediately said to us, can we discuss your participation in the GNU? We said, guys, this is not what the meeting is all about. GNU is still in place. You guys spend a lot of your time talking about your relationship with the DA. Keep that relationship. If government collapses, the GNU collapses, we are happy, come and talk to us. But at the end of the day, for us to talk to you, we're not going to rely on the letter of intent and this bloated government. So we said, please, in the event, for whatever reason, that the GNU collapses, and you need to talk to us because we can help you get to the numbers to govern. But as long as you are not really prepared to really have a proper coalition arrangement upfront, please don't waste your time and our time. If you're not prepared to reduce the size of this cabinet, please don't come and talk to us, because ActionSA has been really vocal on these issues. And those are things that, honestly, they're not negotiable as far as ActionSA is concerned.
Would you be okay to join the GNU with the DA still in there?
No, there's no need. What for, Clement? It can only really compromise our independence. So, I mean, tactically, you heard what the president said yesterday, that for forming what they call the GNU, which is a coalition, was a tactical move for them to still look to still be in charge. And I think we're not in that game. When we got involved with them, with the VET, you remember I spoke to you quite intense. I actually phoned when I had you talking about it to say, Clement, we've made it clear to the ANC. Our participation in that matter, VET matter, it had absolutely nothing to do with the ANC. It had everything to do with the transformation agenda of our country. Because the DA, as you are aware, I'm sure you've got it on record, where they were prepared to vote with the ANC for VET, 2% VET, on condition that the ANC must abandon transformation agenda. And when this matter came to my personal attention, that's when I took serious offense to this. And fortunately enough, our member of the Finance Committee, Alan Beasley, was aware about the weaknesses of the budget that the ministers had presented. So we gave them options on that particular day. Sunday, 110 billion rands of options instead of imposing VAT on South Africans. So, and they wanted us then, after accepting our proposal, to get involved. We said, please come and talk to us in the event
but not when the DA is still in there.
And it's got absolutely nothing to do with that. We'll never work with the DA any longer, because I've learned one thing, that you know, in politics, the actual voters are the bosses. You can say whatever you like as Clement or Herman.
Like you promised that I'll never work with the ANC, and you had to come back and work with them.
And then the voters said, Herman, leave your thinking. This is about us, and we needed to accommodate it.
Okay. What is happening in Tshwane? I mean, the coalition seems to be hanging by a thread. Some people are not happy with the city manager, and there are some parties in the coalition that want him out, and that's beginning to divide the coalition. Is that a big concern? How are you addressing that?
No, I think, Clement, it's exactly the same issue with this narrative that we started getting last night, that ANC is coming to talk to ActionSA about joining the GNU. I can tell you the coalition in Tshwane is as solid as anything else. That I can assure you. The only issue that is there on the table, and we are having discussion as grown-up people, as patriots, where the ANC and EFF, for some reason, they're not happy with the city manager and some Section 56 managers, that they felt they were not properly appointed. And I think for us as ActionSA, through the mayor is not really convinced that it is for that reason she has referred the matter to the MEC of Cogta in the province to really look into the matter. And I think for us as a party, we respect that decision. We can't just really vote the city manager out or kick him out without really having...
Why can't this process be started from scratch?
What for?
Because there seems to be issues with the technicalities of how he was appointed, how many committee members were there.
But the mayor and our caucus in Tshwane is not convinced that they disagree. They don't agree with the ANC and EFF for this matter.
But the ANC and the EFF are important to you as
yes,
the
but that doesn't really mean that we are fighting. We are not fighting with the ANC and EFF. It's an engagement that we are having. It is up to them to actually prove to us that they've got a case. And if they've got a case, then the mayor and our caucus in Tshwane will do what is right. But as I'm talking to you right now, that coalition is as tight as possible on a daily basis. Actually, even now, just waiting for your interview, I saw on one of the social media, one of the MMCs saying, you know, because there's an article in one of the newspapers saying the coalition in Tshwane is at risk. I can tell you it's absolute nonsense.
I had the ANC earlier this week. They were raising concerns about the city manager. I was listening to Julius Malema also say that Herman Mashaba is being arrogant here.
Yeah, yes, no, I've heard.
Why is the ActionSA not just starting the process from the beginning?
Yeah, but you can imagine, Clement, we just over a year to elections, and absolutely, we have absolutely no reason whatsoever to do what is right for this country and our capital city. But we can't just really support something which doesn't really make sense to us. It is for that reason the executive mayor referred this matter to COPTA to see if they agree, because this, you must understand, when the appointment was done, the city at the time was run by the DA. Yeah. And we fail to understand as to why now, guys. We've been running the city for almost a year now, 10 months, and all of a sudden you bring this matter. At the time when, Clement, you remember very well, I'm on record before finalizing the takeover of Tshwane. Remember when I made the statement, I got attacked. Left, right, and center. I remember I was overseas, called the names and so forth. But I stuck to my guns because obviously engaging the DA over the last 2 years, refusing to provide services to poor communities, we were left with no option than to really talk to the ANC and EFF so that our city can have government. But I was really very concerned, and I shared this with South Africa. I said, if the city of Tshwane was a company and I was a director, I would call for its liquidation. But I said we can't liquidate the city. We've got to find a way to repair it and correct it. And I think I must have had an interview with you and others in this regard. Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you're saying that things are solid. Thank you so much for making time for us, Mr. Mashaba. That's the leader of ActionSA. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, let's move to this before we wrap up the show. The South African government has noted with concern the arrival in eSwatini of a group of dangerous criminals from various nationalities who were deported from the US. Crispin Pierre is the spokesperson for the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, and he said the minister had noted the earlier statement by the Eswatini government in which they indicated that they would collaborate with the International Organization for Migration to facilitate the transit of these inmates to their countries of origin. The acting spokesperson for the Eswatini government is Thabile Mdluli, joining us now over Zoom. Thabile, thank you so much for your time. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement. Thank you for having me.
So can you share with us the details of the agreement we have with the US? Why have you decided to take these dangerous criminals for them?
Thank you, Clement. As we've been saying since the 15th or the 16th of July, this is a decision that's purely based on good diplomatic relations between Eswatini and the United States. And we do note that Eswatini obviously would be concerned about their safety, that concern has actually extended to our neighbors as well. But we have always maintained that they have no reason to be afraid. That the Eswatini government will do everything to make sure that these criminals do not pose any threat or danger to Eswatini, let alone to our neighbors.
Okay, and how are you addressing that concern? Because, I mean, let's look at the profile of these criminals. Some of them are prisoners who were convicted of various crimes, including child rape, murder, and robbery. These are dangerous criminals, and that's why South Africa is also concerned here. How are you addressing their concerns?
I don't know. I mean, Eswatini has more dangerous criminals than murderers and child rapists. I'm sure South Africa has even more dangerous criminals.
And we don't want more.
Not really, but what we're trying to say is the Eswatini government has watertight security systems. We have very, very low rates of prison breaks even. So we have no reason to believe that because they have murdered someone in the US, then they will break away in Eswatini and pose a danger to the public. But also they are kept in solitary confinement with very, very, very high security measures being taken to make sure that they don't break out.
Okay, so as the Eswatini government, when do you plan to take these prisoners back to their home countries? Because the US has tried to deport them to their own countries, but they failed. So what makes you think you'll be able to do that?
First of all, Eswatini is an unaligned state. Our motto is we have no enemy. And we are friends with the US, but also we are friends with the 5 countries where the deportees come from. And I can assure you that 2 of those countries have already reached out to say they want their people back. But also the repatriation processes have already begun with other stakeholders. Although at this point it's very difficult to say how long that process is going to take, but the process of engagement has already started. And we are sure maybe in less than 12 months, they should all be gone back to their countries.
So all of them should be gone back to their countries. So between now and, of course, the 12 months or 11 months, how do you address the concern that South Africa has raised? Have you spoken to our government as the government of Eswatini? How are you addressing this concern that they have?
The South African government has actually reached out through diplomatic channels, and we intend to address those concerns through diplomatic means as well.
That how do you plan to do that? Are you just going to tell them that, well, we've got tight security, these people are not going to jump the fence and come to South Africa as they escape from prison? What's the plan? Because they need some level of assurance from the government of Eswatini.
We will definitely engage where they have concerns, and ours is just to assure them that as our friends as well, because South Africa is also our diplomatic friend, one of our biggest. So we're going to make sure that those relationships are not spoiled by these deportees being transited through Eswatini.
What's in it for you? Why did you as Eswatini agree that, oh, we'll just take these people that America doesn't want? What's in it for you as Eswatini?
As I've already said, this is purely based on diplomatic relations. We intend to strengthen those relations. Obviously, when we have strengthened relations, it makes it easier to actually negotiate should that eventuality come. So because we do believe that no one would want to see their friends suffer. So it makes the negotiation ground easier for Eswatini when we sit with the United States to negotiate for anything that we may have to negotiate with.
Okay. All right, makes sense. Thabile Mdluli, thank you so much for making time for us. That is the spokesperson for the Eswatini government. So they've taken these deportees from America because they think one day it may come in handy for them when they negotiate. That may pay in their favor. That, oh, we helped you one day, so you come through for us this time around. Well, let me thank you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Have a good evening. Cheers.